Welcome to the Anti-Architect Podcast. I am your host, Christian Giordano. As president and owner of the design firm Mancini Duffy, I am driven by a quest for learning and radically changing the industry. With this podcast, I'm hoping to improve the industry that I'm so passionate about by taking a critical look at how architects work through a variety of voices and shared experiences. Hello, Anti-Architect Podcast listeners. We have a special episode today with lots of guests here in our New York studio, so this should be lots of fun. Jennifer Greene, Director of Marketing at Ronnette Riley Architects. Elysa Marden, Senior Vice President of Arts and Events at Brookfield Properties. Jenna Harris, City Harvest Associate Director. And Jessica Sheridan, Principal Extraordinaire here at Mancini Duffy. We are here today to speak about a great cause. It's one of the most unique ways that architects and designers give back each year. And for those who witness it firsthand, it's truly an awe-inspiring sight. CANstruction is a unique global charity that hosts a design-build competition where teams construct structures solely from unopened cans of food, fitting within an 8-foot by 8-foot by 8-foot space. Originating in Seattle in 1992 as a simple food drive initiated by the Society for Design Administration, SDA, it has transformed into an international project. Now, CANstruction events span 150 cities in 8 countries, contributing to over 50 million cans of food to combat hunger. In New York City, the teams consist of professionals from the AEC and building sectors, including architects, designers, engineers, students, and contractors. CANstruction New York donates all its food to City Harvest, making it the largest yearly contribution to City Harvest dedicated to food, rescue, and nutrition. Managed entirely by volunteers, over 1.8 million pounds of food have been donated. With support from SDA New York chapter, the annual competition takes place at Brookfield Place in Lower Manhattan, and its celebrity judges give awards in categories such as Best Original Design, Structural Integrity, and more. The public can vote for the People's Choice Award online, of course, and visit the exhibit. Winners will be revealed on November 6th. When it's all said and done, this year's event alone will exhibit approximately 79,400 cans of food, which will provide approximately 43,281 meals. Thank you all for taking the time to be guests here in the studio. Rather than me read kind of everybody's bio, why don't we go around the room and kind of introduce yourselves? Jennifer, why don't we start with you?
Hi, Jennifer Greene. As you said, I'm the Director of Marketing at Ronnette Riley Architect. That is my 9 to 6 paying job. I also am past President Director of the SDA New York chapter, and we're the ones who stole the idea from SDA Seattle and created CANstruction as a way for our firms, architects, and engineers to do some team building exercises and to give back to New York City. I can also say I am one of the founding committee members, and I've been doing this since the beginning. This is our 31st year.
Wow. Jenna?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Jenna Harris. I am the Associate Director at City Harvest. I work on our what we call our Supply Chain New York team. So I work with all the food donors that have excess food to donate within New York City. And I have the pleasure of working on some really fun events, including CANstruction every year. It's one of my favorite events. So I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Elysa?
Thanks. Great to be here. My name is Elysa Marden. I'm the Senior Vice President of Arts and Events for Brookfield Properties. The Brookfield Properties Arts and Culture program is dedicated to animating our public spaces with all kinds of things, from music, dance, film, visual art, Santa Claus, Halloween, and of course, the annual favorite, CANstruction, which has been with us for 16 years.
And Jessica.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm Jessica Sheridan. I'm a principal here at Mancini Duffy, and I lead a studio as well. I am really excited to be talking to you guys, especially because I've been attending for as long as I can remember. I remember when it was at the UN. And then last year, I was really honored to be on the jury as well. So I'm very excited to talk to you guys today.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. So about 20 years ago, I did CANstruction. I remember my wife and I were actually trying to find pictures of it last night because it was definitely not digital pictures. It was actual pictures. And so I remember it was this dragon that was like weaving in and out of a floor or something like that. It was when I was with a company called Swanky Hayden Connell Architects. I could have sworn it was at Brookfield Place, but Katie just reminded me it was probably at 200 Lex,
yeah.
which sounds right now. But I remember we had started it and it like wasn't going to end up where it should have been. And so we had to move the thing and we basically dismantled it and kind of shifted it over and put it back. And I will say it was so much work, but we had so much fun doing it. I mean, there were people sleeping on the floor. It was like an all-nighter kind of thing. I guess they don't allow that anymore.
It's not needed anymore.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the first years at Brookfield Place, we had some all-nighters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we had a blast doing it. And I think we came in like 9th or 10th, if I remember correctly. But to me, it's one of those things that I think every architect in New York City should be required to do because it's a lot of fun. You meet people from other firms and it's just a great like community building thing. So I want to start with some questions. Jen, specifically for you, tell us how and why CANstruction was created.
Well, as I said, SDA New York chapter is the kind of creator of CANstruction New York. And SDA is made up of professional administrators and design firm. And our mission is to educate our members in the various disciplines of design firm administration and management. So I had just joined the SDA in 1992, and Sherry Melillo, who was I think the president of the chapter at the time, said, we got this great idea. Seattle SDA did the what's their, not Sunsphere, what do they call it? The
Space Needle?
Space Needle, thank you. As a fundraiser, and Sherry said, why don't we do that and let's call it CANstruction. And so that's how it was founded. And the rest is history. That first year we had 8 tiny little structures. We had it at the Design Center, and John was still alive, and he was the master of ceremony for those first couple of years. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then now we've, from 8, we've had as many as 45 structures. At Brookfield Place, I think we've had 35, 36. We sort of took over all of the open areas.
Yeah, that's great. And so one thing I didn't realize was that I truly thought this was a New York only thing. I had no idea that it was in that many other cities or even other countries. So I was fascinated. So where else is it? And I guess my question is New York one of the largest?
Yes,
okay.
We are the largest.
Okay.
It started in New York, and then other SDA chapters thought it was great, and they started doing it. And then it got big enough that actually Sherry's nephew became the executive director. And now we have a full-time national executive director, and they sort of handle the international competitions.
Oh, wow.
Which we have in Hong Kong and London and Australia, China, I forget everybody else.
It's okay.
Yeah. And then after the winners from each CANstruction internationally are all sent to national CANstruction, and then they are juried also for international winners.
Oh, so it rolls back up.
Yeah, and that's usually done at the AIA yearly conference.
Okay. Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So what are the rules? And I'd love for anyone to jump in here, but what are the rules, and be specific? Like, how does this all happen? And for anyone who's ever seen it, is it glued? Is it welded? Is it all that sort of stuff? How does it all work?
Okay, so teams can can create on an 8-foot by 8-foot by 8-foot structure. This year we asked them to do a little smaller because we have less room because Brookfield put in furniture where the CANstructions used to be. It's like, what were they thinking? And
They're activating their public space.
Exactly. Actually,
You're
it's
not
beautiful.
here year-round.
So, it's true. They have to make full cans of food. We discourage sodas or anything. No alcohol. They can't be glued. They can't do anything that takes the label off because City Harvest has to know what's in the can. So they can use clear tape, wood, foam core, whatever, to build them. But they have to be look like they're self-sustained.
Right.
And what else? Do you remember, Jessica? I think that's it. We also discourage props. We'd rather the props be cans, but some people use rice for water and things like that, which is okay.
Right.
But
They decorated it a bit.
It's CANstruction. It's not boxstruction or anything.
And I think the most creative ones come out of that integrity around featuring just the cans
Just the
and
can.
trying to do the structure only as a self-supporting thing without any fasteners or props,
Right.
those types of things.
So how many teams enter on a yearly basis?
This year we had 33 initially and several dropped out. We have 28 now. Last year we
Okay.
had 26. We were hoping to have 31 for 31st year,
Okay.
but 28, and that's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what are the categories that, they're judged on?
So we give awards for juror's favorite. Is that what it's called? Structural ingenuity,
Best meal.
best meal, best use of labels, and then we give 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
And then National CANstruction makes us give an award for most cans, which no team really wants because there's nothing designy about it. And then New York chapter gives a Sherry Award in honor of our founding director, Sherry, who passed away several years ago.
Oh.
And then this year, we're also giving an Amy J. Nanny Award just for this year. She was our co-chair for ever, and she passed away this year.
Oh, wow.
So her brother, who's an architect, Tim Nanny, is going to pick the most mischievous award. Yeah.
So are there differences between the various cities or maybe on the national side? Is it always the same kind of rules?
Always the same rules.
Okay.
Some chapters have themes for the year. Our theme is just hunger every year.
Okay.
Combating hunger. And I don't know, internationally, it's all the same rules. Used to, when we had the international awards, New York swept many of the awards, but now there are a lot of international winners. It's like, hey.
They're on to us.
But we always win at least one international award, sometimes 2.
Jenna, can you tell us about City Harvest, just in general, what City Harvest does, and then how CANstruction has become such a great partner?
Yeah, so City Harvest is a food rescue organization. We rescue food that would otherwise go to waste. So that could be from supermarkets, it could be from restaurants, large farms, outside of the city, obviously, but kind of all sectors of the supply chain. We rescue that this year. We'll rescue about 77 million pounds. And then we work with a network of soup kitchens and food pantries all across New York City to distribute it completely free of charge. So CANstruction is a great way for us to get a really large donation of canned goods right before the holidays every year. So it really helps to fill a need that is so large year round, but especially around the holidays.
Okay. Not to veer too far off topic, but I'm always fascinated by this. So the amount of food at the end of the day at restaurants and all of that sort of stuff, how does that work? How do you know? How do they know? How does all that function?
It really varies, donor to donor. I would say a lot of restaurants in particular have gotten really good at keeping their excess low, but we do find supermarkets have a ton of excess. A lot of the wholesalers, manufacturers, space is really limited in New York City. So maybe it doesn't sell right away and they don't have space to hold it. they'll call us. We go rescue it. The way that we work, we have trucks on the road 7 days a week. So we're picking up food and delivering it to our agency partners 7 days a week as it's available.
And then those partners are what, more like food pantries, people that are going to then ultimately take the food, prepare it, and then give it out?
Exactly, yeah. Soup kitchens, food pantries, community organizations. City Harvest, the only way that we actually distribute to clients is something that we call a mobile market. It's like a kind of an open air farmers market, all for free.
Okay.
But otherwise, all of our food gets distributed to a network of soup kitchens and food pantries that do the distribution on their side.
Wow, fascinating. That's something that you'd see on one of those documentaries, how that actually works. I've always been curious about that. So can you elaborate a bit on the impact CANstruction New York has had on, the local communities here, and especially in terms of food donations?
Yeah. So one thing that we're seeing in New York City since the pandemic, obviously things have gotten worse in the pantry network, but we're still seeing that more than 60% more people are visiting pantries day to day since before COVID. So unfortunately, the need is still out there. It's still pretty large. And so what we get from CANstruction really helps us to fill those pantries with canned goods and fill some of that need that we see around the city.
Okay. And why post-pandemic has the need increased?
I think the pandemic hit a lot of people that were, just at the line of needing a pantry. It really hurt a lot of people in that way. And then things just with inflation, prices of housing going up, we're just kind of unfortunately not getting better. Where people, we're still sort of seeing that the need increasing. So we're hoping that will decline. But unfortunately, at the moment, we do anticipate that the need will still be out there.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So how do you think that CANstruction New York really helps promote this, the idea that there is a lot of food need and hunger within New York City? Yeah,
I mean, this is a great way to get, I don't know the numbers of who comes into Brookfield Place, but it's a lot of people. And to your point, Jennifer, the theme of CANstruction every year is hunger. So it's teaching all these people that hunger is an issue in New York City. People can actually come to Brookfield and donate cans themselves if they want. Well, we rescue from that as well. So it's just a great way to show New Yorkers that the need is there and kind of teach them about our work and what CANstruction is doing to help.
And then as far as individuals or companies, just generally getting involved in City Harvest, what can we do to help? Is it a donation thing? Is it a food donation thing? Is it a money donation thing? How does all that work?
Yeah.
You'll take it all.
All of the above, yeah.
I'm sure. As I said that.
Yeah, I think, monetary donations go a long way just because we can procure food at a lower price if we need than if you were to buy it on your own. But I would say volunteers, donations, food drives, where we just started our largest food drive of the year called the Daily News Food Drive. So all that's on our website, cityharvest.org, and we're always happy to have people support us.
Okay, that's great. So Elysa, as far as I can remember, as I clearly when talking about it earlier, Brookfield's always been hosting this event. I guess that's not necessarily accurate, but I used to live down in Battery Park City. And I love that because I love that I wasn't doing the building of the cans at that point. But it's a great spot for families to go and walk around and just kind of have access to the whole thing. How did this partnership form with CANstruction and City Harvest in New York, and how has it evolved?
Well, Sherry Melillo, who we've talked about quite a bit now, the founder, was looking for a new home for CANstruction, and of course knew Brookfield Properties from the construction and development arm, and got connected to my predecessor, Deborah Simon. And so Sherry and Deborah cooked up using the space. We had a gallery space at that time that didn't fit everything. So we had to then start spilling into the public spaces. So there was always a question of how do we protect the sculptures from the public and also make them fully accessible 24 hours a day. And we have absolutely found that sweet spot with where we put them and the kind of stanchion we use to protect them that doesn't interfere visually with the wonderful artistry of these sculptures.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest development over the years is as Brookfield Place has been renovated and changed. And so it's a very living, dynamic complex. CANstruction continually finds new homes for the sculptures. And we will be in a building we've never been in this year, where it will extend down to 200 Liberty Street. So that will be a lot of fun to see sculptures in a brand new home at Brookfield Place as well.
Has anyone ever messed with the sculptures?
Sadly, yes.
Oh, really?
For the most part, no. We've had really good success. And I would say that the structural integrity has messed with the sculptures more than human intervention. And I will say that falling sculptures are very loud on marble.
Yeah, and maybe messy.
Yeah, we haven't really had breakage. It's just very loud when they come down. But yes, we had some boisterous teenagers one year that took down a sculpture.
That's unfortunate.
It was.
Yeah. Not surprising, but unfortunate. So what kind of collaboration is required amongst the various parties to involve, an event like this to be successful and then grow every year?
I think that we really rely on CANstruction and the imagination of the architects and engineers and construction firms that come in and create these sculptures. I mean, everyone in the room has seen them, but if you haven't seen them, you really have to, whether that is coming down to Brookfield Place and experiencing them in person while they're here, or wherever your local chapter is, or to just, if you Google online, the images are incredible. Yep. And the imagination and the integrity of these sculptures, they're just amazing. And I think that is the true draw for people to come back year over year. And we've now started to see actually families know when the build night is. And we've actually we have a couple families now that come to build night because they're fascinated. And we don't have room to have an audience at build night. It's just it's a crazy experience no matter what. But it's been fascinating to see kids, particularly into architecture and engineering, start to come and watch the architecture take place.
That's like, the blowing up of the balloons for the Thanksgiving Day parade. Exactly. That actually turns out to be more interesting than the parade itself. So.
There's a lot that happens behind the scenes, though. We work with Brookfield Place people and with City Harvest. Like this week, the trucking company is picking up all the cans from all the 28 firms, loading them in their space, and then on next Monday, the 30th, we're loading everything in overnight, all the cans to all the different stations, because you have the Halloween.
We just take Halloween night off.
We take Halloween night off. So we couldn't load it in on Tuesday, and then everybody builds on Wednesday. So we've been working with Brookfield Place on which elevators we can use. We can't start until after 6. Only a couple of elevators. Like there's no elevator that goes up to 200 Lex that we can use, so we have to bring them all in and then go all the way across. And then we're working with City Harvest on when their trucks come to pick it up. And we encourage all the visitors to bring a can of food to donate. So City Harvest comes every other night to pick up the bin. And so there's a lot that goes on that it doesn't just
well, logistics planning.
That's just, how nice.
That's for sure. How can the public support engage CANstruction beyond just attending, the one night or the few nights? Is this something that goes on that they can continue to engage throughout the year?
Well, as Jenna said, we always take donations. Okay. It's pretty much right around now. I mean, we're doing right now $31 for the 31st year campaign to try and raise $3,100. So, we do little things like that. It's like you said at the beginning, we all have full-time jobs. This is a 100% volunteer organization. Most of us who are doing it have been doing it for a long time. Yeah.
Jessica Sheridan. Knowing and working with you for many years, I get to give you all the gotcha questions. So design for public space is a topic that I know is important to you. How do you think CANstruction aids in connecting the public with architecture and design?
Yeah, I think one, just by seeing these structures go up, like you were saying, Elysa, it's really, people get to watch it happen in real time. And then once they're built, having people just wander through Brookfield Place and come across it's like a scavenger hunt almost, where you're wandering through all of the different corridors and you come across another one. And so it becomes really fun, especially for kids, to see how these structures are put together. And there are a lot of themes that you recognize, some, New York based, some in pop culture. And so everyone sort of, once it clicks, you sort of recognize what it is, and it gets really exciting. And so the idea that the architecture and engineering community comes together around this idea, also engage and in a public space, really brings everyone together around the cause, and then also gets people really excited about what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
How was it being a juror?
I loved being a juror. I thought it was really fascinating because, of course, coming at it from being an architect, I have very specific opinions about what I think about, how people use labels and structures, but everyone came at it from a very different perspective. And so we had a couple of people that were chefs last year, and they were very much looking at the ingredients of the cans, much more so than the structure. And, it's just interesting that everyone has a different perspective. And so some of the structures that I thought for sure would win, no one else had any interest in,
Really?
and vice versa.
And many times the teams that are most successful are not necessarily architects, which is surprising. So who's better at this? Is it architects, designers, contractors, engineers?
I think right now, and we were talking about this a little bit before we started, I think right now the structural engineers have the edge on us.
That sort of makes sense.
Sort of makes sense. What they do, I think architects get wrapped up too much in the way that the labels look, and that takes away from the ingenuity of the structure itself. And if I think architects overcomplicate things. And last year we had an honorable mention that was an architecture firm that was very simple. It was the Wakanda Forever skull, and it was amazing, but it was really simple. It was very few types of labels, and it was just they didn't overthink it. So I think architects overthink things too much.
Now, you can't cover or manipulate the labels, right? It's the labels are the thing,
labels.
right?
The labels are the labels,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, there was I think it was a tuna fish company that had the black label.
Yeah, they're very popular.
Yeah.
Because they have silver labels and black labels and pink labels. We actually have a Barbie one this year. It's often, you said, pop culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and it isn't, and I always found it surprising that the architects didn't do buildings, right? It was always, random things, right? Different characters or whatever, more on sort of taking objects and making them big. Yeah, which I thought was interesting. I thought architects would do more on the building side. Jessica, where do you think architects succeed, and where do you think they fail in considering their submission?
Yeah, so like I said, I think they overthink the aesthetics of the label a little too much, and they don't focus as much on the structure itself.
Right.
I think with, as you said, this has been going on for a very long time. So with parametric modeling and the introduction of Revit and all of our current technologies, it's making it a lot easier for, I think, architects to be able to conceive of it in a little bit more depth. So I think we're more successful now than we were when maybe it was more trial and error and we had to figure it out on the fly.
Okay. So part of the mission behind this podcast is to, take a deep dive into how architects work with clients and take a lens into how clients see us. To your knowledge, have there ever been any submissions where architects or engineers team with their own clients, or the clients come in and try to do something different?
Excuse me, not necessarily with their own clients, but we have one firm, Perkins Eastman, who always works with a high school. Actually, it's a high school that they built. So, yes, in that way. But I think they're the only firm that always mentors high schoolers.
Okay.
I believe.
It'd be interesting. We do a lot of restaurants, and it'd be interesting to approach some of our restaurant clients with this idea of maybe partnering with them on something. That's something we should keep in mind,
Yeah, we should
especially
do
with there's one I'm
Stay
thinking
tuned for
of.
next year.
Exactly. You touched on this a little bit, Jessica, but how do you think architects can utilize technology better to help develop designs, or even engineers?
I think there's a lot of experimentation, and I think not falling back on what you know or what the previous submissions had would lead to some really interesting, innovative ideas. I don't have any specific examples, but I think what frustrates me a little bit about New York, or the ones that I've seen in New York, is that there are those common themes that you see every year, like a Chinese food box, or the Greek coffee cup. Those seem to happen every year, and it would be nice to move past some of that and think about something different, or maybe even architecture and structures, like you said, that don't really seem to dominate.
Yeah. So I guess describe some of the most unique designs you've all seen over the years.
I definitely have some personal favorites, but I just want to actually call out that in my experience, and I don't know which firms do this and don't do this, that they do pay attention to what cans they're using. So that the tuna is great to build with, and sardines, but they're also fantastic for City Harvest. Goya has been a big sponsor, and as we know, beans are great for City Harvest and food rescue. So that I think that there is a lot of wonderful attention when you walk around to see what is being used, and with the intention of healthy soups and tuna and sardines, high protein, that's easy.
Right. It's going to become
City
a meal
Harvest.
rather than it's just 10,000 cans of tomato sauce.
Right. Good point.
Yeah, I think, and for that reason, we have on our side, our agency partners are always kind of in competition for who's going to get this donation, because it is such unique and great things. We don't get, canned tuna all the time. We don't get canned sardines. So to be able to provide that to our agency network is
Do you
great.
give suggestions to teams, or do you give a list? It's totally random.
Totally random.
Okay.
As Elysa said, Goya sponsors a team each year. And if the team builds 100% out of Goya cans, then they sponsor it. Last year, they sponsored 2 teams. This year, they're unable to sponsor, but they gave all the cans at cost.
Okay.
Or not gave, but one could buy all the cans at cost.
Right. And are teams individually responsible for buying their own cans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And some fundraise, some firms just buy it for them.
Yeah.
We can get from... We're a 501c3, so we can get letters to, for tax write-offs and things.
Yeah.
But some of my favorite have been the balloon dog. Who's that artist? Koons? Yeah.
Jeff Koons.
We had an amazing giant butterfly one year. The Wakanda I loved last year.
The seahorse.
The seahorse.
It was so beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's every year. It's how do they come up with these ideas? It's just so cool. And then they have to submit. They have to enter, and then they have a month to submit their sketch, and it can be a hand sketch, or it can be a cat or rabbit or whatever. Sometimes one year we had 3. Was it squirrels? It was 3 squirrels, and we let them know, and one team switched it to a fox. This year we have a couple of the same themes, but they're different enough that we let them know, and they're just going to keep with their initial idea.
Right. So of the ones that have fallen over, do you remember which ones?
I do. There was the
one that was like a helix.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
And then we had a sailboat that was right in front of the revolving door, and initially it had 2 sails, but then it just had 1 sail. They rebuilt it, but they rebuilt it with just better structure and 1 scale. And in one part there's doors here and doors here.
It creates a vacuum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the 3 that are in the sort of premier spot, we always make sure they're going to be built.
Okay.
Those are always the saddest calls that we get when they're like, one of the structures fell over. You have to come back and get it. Maybe they can't rebuild it, and so we have to send a truck and rescue it. But I always wait and hope that I don't get a call from Annie during the 2 weeks when everything's up.
Who makes that call back to the team? Like, hey, by the way, your stuff fell over.
Annie Tan is our chair. She's the one who handles all the trucking and getting all the insurance. And one year, we didn't have enough trucks. She rented a U-Haul and went to pick up 3 teams to get them there in time.
Oh, wow.
So Annie Tan is really
it's a labor of love.
Backbone. Yeah. I mean, we have there are 5 of us, Katie Devlin, who's our president, and Annie, Pat Layden. Vicky does all the graphics for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, to your credit, I mean, you really do make an effort to make sure that as few people as possible fail.
Yes.
So you help ensure that people get what they need, where they need it, and that they have all of the stuff that they need in order to build. And you run it like a really well-oiled machine. I mean, you've been doing it for long enough.
A long time. Yeah, it's pretty well-oiled now.
Many teams who are doing it for the first time have no idea what they're about to get into, and you make it so much easier.
Thank you.
Where do you see CANstruction New York or CANstruction in general sort of going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Hopefully, nowhere except where we are. I think we're one of the most popular exhibits that you have.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everybody loves CANstruction and asks for it to be back. And starting in the summer, they'll be like, are the cans coming? We were like, yes, the cans are coming.
Families that come, some that were kids when they first saw them are now bringing their kids, which is really cool. We have generations to generations. We have volunteers that work with Arts Brookfield sitting at the sort of check-in table. It's not called Arts Brookfield. What's it called now?
It's now Brookfield Properties Arts and Culture.
Arts and Culture. Okay. And we see the same people every year.
Sure.
We waited for this every year. We're so excited. They're coming down from Westchester, coming in from New Jersey.
That's great.
It's really great.
That is nanny heaven down there. During
it is. It is.
It's babies and strollers. I remember my daughter was part of that brigade. Yeah. So I'm sure it gets lots of foot traffic even during the day.
It does. Not only do we have the office tenants and residents, but school groups come through quite frequently. And whether that's a visual art drawing lesson or a mathematics lesson, like it's a fascinating, like you walk by and hear some teacher talking about something that's like, fascinating.
But it also gets the kids aware early of the need, that 1 in 4 New Yorkers goes hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up here, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd want to tell the listeners?
I do want to say that it's not jurors' favorite anymore. It's best original design.
Okay.
So I would get in trouble for saying.
Got it. Okay.
Best original design.
No favorites.
Yeah, no favorites. Yeah.
Anyone else want to add anything before we kind of wrap up?
I have a question about how you choose your jurors.
Well,
they think of the most brilliant people. Of course.
Brookfield Place usually gives us one. This year it's
Midnight Theater.
Right. What's his
Hidden
name?
Leaf.
Josh Cohen from Midnight Theater. City Harvest always gets 2 of their food council.
Do you want to go through who's going to be involved this year?
Yeah, this year's jury is Chris Grabenstein, who's an award-winning #1 New York Times bestselling author of middle kids groups, Limoncello, Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library. Cool. He's also a good friend of mine. We went to school together. Jesse Lazar, who's the executive director of the AIA New York chapter. Ryan O'Connor, who's CEO of Clinton Management. Manish Goyal of Sona. He's the owner of Sona Restaurant and many other things. And Max Tucci, who's a 3rd generation Delmonico, and he wrote Amazon's #1 best-selling cookbook, which is The Delmonico Way.
Oh, nice.
So, but it depends. We always try and get an architect. We'd like to get a structural engineer. We didn't have one this year. Yeah, it just depends on how we get. We like to have somebody from the press, which we also don't this year, but we have jurors who get a lot of press. So hopefully from their social media and all will get spread out even further.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you all so much for being here.
You.
Jennifer, Elysa, Jenna, Jessica. I would say that, thank you for all that you do for CANstruction, City Harvest, New York City, the fight against hunger. I know there are many others, some sitting here in the room that didn't want to be on, that are, big parts of this. It takes a big team to make this happen. And as we said, you're all volunteers. So, thank you for doing something that is meaningful and special for New York City and to others. So, so if you're around, definitely want to come by and see it. The 31st annual CANstruction New York Design Build Competition takes place from November 2nd to the 13th at Brookfield Place, which is 230 Vesey Street in New York City. It's open to the public. As we said, it's great for kids, great for families. For more information, you can visit the sdanyc.org website, and there's the CANstruction link there, and obviously cityharvest.org. Is there anything else on the plug side you guys would like to?
Also,
bfplnyc.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah.